At the Quail this year, Bugatti unveiled a new, limited-run, 1600 horsepower car based on the Chrion. And it's called the
Centodieci.
Come on, repeat after me.
Centodieci.
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 It pays homage to the wonderful EB110, and Achim Anscheidt, Bugatti's director of design, kindly agreed to talk us through both old and new cars.
Let's start with this wonderful car.
As a designer, what I feel when I look at this car, A, it was on my poster wall when I was a kid. B, the car itself, what it meant at the time. Also compared, for example, to a Ferrari F40.
Yes.
And how unique it was with a 4x4 drivetrain, carbon fiber monocoque, quite unique at the time.
It really moved the game on, didn't it?
4 turbochargers. The crankshaft and the gearbox in one housing underneath the engine. That's why the passengers are sitting so close together.
Yes.
And there's still a drive shaft going to the front for 4x4 driving. So that car was quite special, but it was only produced for 5 years. 100 GTs, a 30 SS, roughly. The forgotten supercar, so to say. What I, as a designer, I think have to understand in the background is obviously the character and the fame of Romano Artioli, having brought back the brand Bugatti after 40 years roughly in 1988 from the French government. And secondly, Gianpaolo Benedini, his architect for the factory in Campo Galliano.
Yes, amazing factory, wasn't it?
And even more amazing is that Gianpaolo Benedini was also the designer for this car. And I think you can very clearly see that when you see EB110. There are elements on this car. Yes, it's an Italian wedge on 4 wheels, like all Italian sports cars were at the time. No? But Benedini, as an architect and a big fan of the Bauhaus movement, created some elements on this car that are very geometric, very controlled. And mind you, this Bauhaus philosophy only surfaced 5 years later with the Audi design development, linking that back. So I think Benedini was an influence there, and a big fan of that, and you can see that in various angles of the car.
Let's have a walk around here. So
he brought back the horseshoe, of course, and the logo, which you will see later on the Homage project. Yes, we have a smaller horseshoe, smaller than the Chrion, but not as small as this one. Somewhere more organic in between here. But also in terms of headlight development, I think this was very unique. But the translation to the Homage project is something that obviously headlamp technology has moved so far forward that we were able to create a quite bit more modern and horizontal look, which gives the car actually a bit more width than the frontal presence here.
Absolutely. And then as we go down the side of the car, I suppose the thing to note is this is obviously being an SS, being a super sport, so we have the five holes in the side there, which you don't get on the standard EB110.
Agreed, that is fairly literal. It's one of those aspects that were, I think, we had to do this. It's so iconic. But you can see here what I was describing, this radical wedge on the car, together with this element that is different to the GT, only the SS had that. But what you can also see is this enormous tumble home, totally sexy, with a wide shoulder. This is due to the gearbox and the crankshaft being in one housing underneath the engine. That's why the passengers can still sit so close together. It allows for a wide shoulder. But there's also a fascination that you see here with the closed shielding of the engine cover. And I proposed that to our engineers that I have in mind to do this for the reminiscence. And they said, that's not going to happen. Because you know better than me, the cooling performance of a Chrion is the most important aspect of our car design around Bugatti.
It's 10 radiators or something like that to get all the heat out of the car.
The whole product Chrion is based around temperature handling. So when I proposed this, there was extreme resistance. And I said, you maybe can do it if you offer us a couple of solutions around that allow for venting through. And that's why we picked up on those chimneys here. Yes. You see that on the Homage in translation. We picked also on the NACA ducts that you see up on the side, but we put them on the roof, and they draw the air into the engine compartment. And then you will see the rear part of the car in the Homage that shows a new interpretation of this.
Absolutely. I love the slatted rear lights as well. It is extraordinary. With this, should we go and have a look at the...
And make a mental screenshot from that, and then we go over and we speak about the translation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's go and have a look. Yes, taking my mental snapshot of the EB110 and then translating it into this.
What you can see here is how the air gets drawn into the engine compartment with the two Naga ducts. You see the two chimneys on the side, but you mainly see this gaping hole in the rear. And again, it's overall as an outlet like Benedini had wanted it, very geometrical, very Bauhaus, but it serves mainly the function to extract air. And in combination with that, you have the tail lights that are reminiscent of the geometric holes on the SS. So if you want to say so, it's a reverse reminiscence on this whole aspect, but most importantly for me, it creates a win-win situation with the development of the temperature handling and the engineer. Win-win for styling as well, that we have something that is unique in the automotive world and relates back to the icon of the late 80s.
Absolutely. This is an extraordinary rear end, and as you say, to be able to have this enclosed rear deck on here, which we haven't seen on any of the previous cars, it's amazing. The vertical exhausts here.
What you can see here is that we used the whole exhaust manifold and took it out as far as possible to get maximum diffuser efficiency in the center. Goes with the whole performance aspect of the car. It has 100 horsepower more.
So it's up to 1600 horsepower, is that right?
Exactly.
Yes.
A little bit of weight saving as well, and brings it to a power to weight ratio of 1.1.
Wow.
When you look at the 110, there's two things that you realize in the rear end. There's this ultra clean upper area that we just talked about, and the rest is all diffuser,
Yes.
And this is, I think, that statement here. The diffuser carries a lot of function in the aesthetic appeal of this. Same with the wing. On the EB110
it's a fixed rear too.
You have a fixed wing. The same with the SS. The GT had a wing to be deployed, but that adds weight also at the time. And Benedini was as a true racer from the heart, he was the one, Romano, we need to do a performance version of the GT, which turned out to be the SS. And it's a great honor for me to having a chance to translate some of his thinking onto a new project of ours.
Absolutely. Should we have a walk down the side and see see the rest down here? So take us through on the...
you take the lead. Obviously, those 5 elements. In automotive slang language, this is called the cheese grater, but don't tell anybody. You see still a classic Bugatti line, no?
Yes.
On the Chrion is happening down there, on the Devo is happening down here. This is still that line in combination with this reminiscent element, but you also see a wraparound window, actually with quite a tough cut. This is also reminiscent to the EB110. It had this less A-pillarish roof, taping around, and I think that creates a lot of identity. And this is ultimately also, I have to say, one of the reasons why we painted the car white. The EB110, especially the SS, is such a graphic car for all the reasons that we talked about already. I wanted the homage also to be a very graphic car, and that's why we chose black and white as the presentation color. Yeah, remember those air ducts and channels that were left and right of the headlamp on the 110? This is a translation to that, also serving some aerodynamic function, but also housing a much more modern LED lighting and a lighting package that is possible today, but wasn't possible at the time. But I think these are nice possibilities for me to create a reminiscence, but make a step forward, not to be trapped in a retro design at all.
And again, we can see the sort of the clear horizontal lines along here, which hark back to the front of the EB110, and then that much smaller horseshoe in the front.
It's
as
a bit
well.
bigger than on a EB110. And there's also still a radiator behind it. This was another one of my win-win engineering battles, friendly battles. Together with a logo placed outside of the horseshoe, unlike the Chrion, and with a clear centerline accentuation still. Those are some key DNA elements to make the bridge between the old car and the new car as a modern homage.
Absolutely. Achim, thank you so much for talking us around it. That's very kind of you.
Always a pleasure.
And it's fascinating to learn more about it. So there we are. There we are then, that is an insight into the new Bugatti and why it looks the way it does because of this, the EB110. This is incidentally the dour one, which is a one-of-one naked carbon fibre car. They're going to build just 10 Centodiecis and they're going to be £9 million each. All, of course, already sold.